Hey guys, instead of a build guide, this time I got a really interesting and unusual mechanic to talk about. This is not gonna be a really showcasing anything too much. I'm gonna add some clips to show what I mean, but this is mostly just gonna be me talking, explaining the mechanic. And this is a bit complicated, so bear with me while I try to explain it. So, as I was playing with the Fulcrum stuff, doing a build around it, we were testing all sorts of things, and we discovered an interesting thing with the ignite. With the Fulcrum, basically, when you hit, it doesn't need to be with the staff, you can also hit with the spells. When you hit an enemy and apply shock, chill, or ignite, the staff reflects those elements from enemy back to you. So this gave me an idea. What if I did get ignite proliferation on a cluster jewel, and then I would be igniting enemies? Would that work? And turns out, yes, it does work. So I was testing that to see if it would be possible to do like a fake righteous fire, where instead of righteous fire you would be igniting enemies, proliferating ignite from you. I guess I should explain the mechanics behind Fulcrum a bit more. I don't want to talk about this build yet, but basically this is chieftain to be unaffected by ignites from this node, otherwise ignites would kill you. I'm also reversing chill, so I become fast, but during some testing I also spec into Avatar Fire to have more conversion to the explosions, and I also picked up 50% chance to ignite, because normally I don't really have chance to ignite. And a person from stream chat borrowed me an explody body armor, which does 5% of enemy HP as physical damage. But since I got 100% conversion with Avatar Fire, all that damage is fire, and that explode thing also ignites. So explosions from the exploded body armor would ignite, but only had like 50% chance, so it wasn't always. So when it explodes, it ignites our enemies, which then reflects that ignite back to me, and then I run through enemies, proliferating that ignite to our enemies, which then die, proc explosion again, which then hits our enemies and ignites, and it's just like a continuous cycle. However, the thing that I discovered is that this isn't an ignite build, so it's hard to tell. The initial ignite is pretty strong, because I do hit with Inferno Blow, it does big explosions, and it just turns out into one big ignite. Well, not really one big ignite, but it picks the highest ignite damage to reflect back to me. But when enemies explode and ignite our enemies, that explosion is much weaker, and I'm not sure if that explosion is being scaled by anything from you. Maybe it just applies like a reflect damage in some way, which is not scaled by any of the fire nodes. I do have some fire damage nodes, I do not have a lot. This is a crit build, so I don't really have much scaling for ignites, but I'm thinking this could actually be like a legit build. You could probably do like on a proper ignite build, you basically ignite enemy once, you get a very strong ignite on yourself, then run through enemies. You also would want ignite duration, because it gives more time to run between enemy packs without igniting again. So you ignite yourself with a strong ignite. If you're a chieftain, you are not affected by ignite, so it doesn't do damage to you, but it still can be proliferated to enemies with the fan the flames. The fan the flames is like a global, because not like you can't really put ignite proliferation anywhere. Maybe you actually can to the skill that. No, I think it wouldn't work, because you need to be globally having ignite proliferation to proliferate ignite from yourself. So then you would be just running between enemy packs, igniting if your ignite is strong, igniting, killing enemies, they explode because of exploded body armor. Then you would need, ideally you would want to be elementalist, but I'm gonna talk about that in a moment. Then we explode, ignite again, Fulcrum reflects those ignites back to you, refreshes the ignite, and you just can continuously run through the map without stopping. It's like almost like an auto herald build, but for ignites and for explosions. Actually, it is very similar to auto herald, but without a herald. So here are a couple issues. Only chieftain has unaffected by ignites. At some point I tested with elementalist, always ignite with any hits, That would be ideal, but the only other way to be unaffected by ignites is unaffected by ignites boots, which is an elevation mod or elevated mod, and that is very expensive because it requires Maven's Orb, which is like over 6 exalts, and that's not a guarantee. It's like 50-50. You either get that mod or you don't. So it's very expensive to get boosts like that, and the only other way, which I think is a bug, is to use Black Flame Ring, which makes enemies take chaos damage instead of fire. It doesn't really convert your ignite damage into chaos. It just makes enemies take chaos damage instead of fire. And then use chaos inoculation. So you are basically immune to chaos damage. But I did not personally test that. I believe when you ignite an enemy, it copies the ignite instance and strength back to you. But you can reduce that and mitigate that ignite damage with your fire resistance. However, the ignite instance is still going to be the same strength. It just is going to be mitigated by your fire resistance. That's what I believe happens. And then you proliferate that back to enemies. The enemies' resistances would obviously reduce the ignite damage again, but obviously you would want lower enemy resistances, so there are multiple ways of doing that. However, I think it does not count as an additional, like, it doesn't count as ignite when you proliferate ignite from yourself to enemies. I think it just counts as burning. I tested that with the Barracks Respite. Is it Barracks Respite? Yeah, with the Barracks Respite. When you kill an ignited enemy, inflict an equivalent ignite on each nearby enemies. I tested that with my ignite proliferation on enemies, and the enemy that died from my ignite did not ignite a next enemy that was outside the reach of my proliferation. It's kind of really hard to explain, but I hope I can show you the moment when that happened. And the enemy that was standing outside the reach of my proliferation did not get ignited. If the barracks respite would work, that enemy next to the enemy that died from my ignite proliferation would also get ignited, which means the enemy that is taking fire damage from my ignite proliferation is not considered as an ignited enemy, because as soon as I run outside of that enemy range, it stops degenerating, which means it's not an ignite. It's a burn on enemies, but it's not an ignite. And that's why there are other conditional things that say that while enemies are ignited by you, like reduce fire resistance or something like that. It's so difficult to explain, but enemies that are taking fire damage from your ignite proliferation are not considered as ignited enemies, so they would not trigger modifiers that require enemy to be ignited, I assume. So that's why I'm making this video, because it has I guess it's a new thing, because Fulcrum is a new stuff, and this has not been fully explored. So maybe collectively we can figure out all the other shenanigans and figure out maybe some other cool uses, because the exploded body armor plus the Fulcrum stuff plus chieftain or plus expensive boots, I think could be like a legit map clear speed build. Ignite once, run through enemies, they die, they explode, they reignite, you refresh ignite, you keep continue moving, keep continue exploding enemies. It wouldn't really work well for the like bossing, because it adds nothing, but maybe we can figure out something other cool mechanics. So if anyone tried this and or just want to test it and add your input, let me know in the comments below. Now I'm gonna continue playing this Fulcrum build, which is basically a reverse shield build, which I'm not very satisfied with, and I'm gonna do a build guide video about that, but I may actually redo the build and use the Ice Fang Orbit instead of Fulcrum, or I may decide to do the meme with the... I really don't want to be using Chieftain. Ideally I would want Elementalist, because Elementalist has all hits ignite and you don't need chance to ignite. You just take that and all hits will ignite, including like Impulsa or including physical explosions. So you would just need to scale the ignite damage and lowering enemy fire resistance any way you can, I guess. So for now, thank you for watching. If you got any ideas or suggestions or things to test with this kind of ignite shenanigans, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.